Welcome, Cadence community. It's so great to have you with us tonight on our November episode of Cadence. I'm so excited for the holidays, folks. I can't wait for December, but it is still November, and we're excited to have you join us here on Cadence, your home for what's hot in marketing and communications, in live events, in human engagement and connection. And we're so excited that you've taken some of your valuable time to join us here at our beautiful Cadence environment. And we're looking forward to a fantastic program again with you this evening. I'm Steve Boyce. I'll be your host for tonight. And we've got better folks to share with you in our two very special guests whom we will introduce in just a moment. So hang tight, folks. The great content is coming very shortly. Before we get started, we want to make sure that you are all set for having a great experience with our Cadence community here tonight and with our environment. So, of course, folks, when you're accessing the table environment, we encourage you, as you've probably already experienced, to take full advantage of the experience. When you're assembled with folks at your table, make sure your cameras are on and make sure that you've got your microphones on, and we want to make sure that you're using the chat feature in our environment to engage with others throughout the experience. So you've got a little white toolbar along the bottom of your viewing screen, and that's got all of the icons and buttons that you need to enjoy your experience. So most of it's pretty intuitive, folks, but if you should have trouble along the way, excuse me, I'm a little dry here. In Atlanta, it's turning into winter very quickly. We do have tech folks around to help you out, folks. If you've got any challenges, just look for the tech icons. Go ahead and click on that, and people will come and assist you. So, folks, let's go ahead and get started with tonight's program. I know you're all excited to meet our two very special guests. But first, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about our topic for tonight. And wow, what a timely topic. Mental reboot, mental health and human connection in a virtual working world. Boy, it's been a tough year and a half, 18 months. Depending on where you start counting, it's been a long haul, folks. You know what I'm talking about, right? We're spending lots of time together, looking at each other through screens, and it's such a different way to engage. And it's exhausting and tiring and frustrating, but it can also be energizing and a great way to discover new people and meet new people. And technology and digital engagement can provide new avenues to keep those important human connections, right? And so we're going to be exploring these and other great topics tonight with our panel of two amazing guests. And I know you folks want to get to know them. So we're going to go ahead and introduce both of our guests one at a time here. We're going to start with Danny A. Shannon. And let's go ahead and bring Danny up onto the screen. And Danny, it's great to have you join us. Danny, let me read a quick bio for our audience if I can, sure, and then we'll have a conversation as we get into our program. So, folks, Danny is the founder of Encapsulator, a secure web platform providing digital time capsules. Really cool idea, allowing people to record their future hopes and dreams. And Danny, love your openness and transparency with our audience. You are a recovering addict, sober for more than 12 years. It's really fantastic. Yes. Great news. And you've dedicated your life to helping people connect digitally through your platform and educating others about the emotional and social impacts of addiction. Danny Shannon, welcome to Cadence. Great to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you so much for that introduction. It's mate, first of all, you are talking to the future because it's the 1st of December here, which really ties in closely to encapsulating, sending those messages to our future self. And also, when I hear these introductions and I just seen your intro with my head up there, you just wouldn't believe where I was only 13 years ago. I was in the gutter, actually. So I spent 17, and I don't want to catch anyone off by some surprise here, but I am a man in recovery, clean and sober today for 12 years, 2 months, and 15 days. And I have a big, long history of drug abuse, which involved a lot of pain, hurt, and misery. Ever since the age of 14, I picked up drugs, and my life quickly went downhill. I certainly realized these days I missed all my youth. I got stuck on heroin at the age of 16, and from that was like the the beginning of the end for me. The next 17 years was basically just chasing and losing myself, jails, institutions, just a lot of mess. So am I just doing a quick little introduction here? Am I?
Yeah, just a quick
sure.
one. And Danny, just to leave that sharing bit on a high note, you certainly seem much happier and in a much better place now than those last dozen years or so. Is that true?
Life is good, Steve. I'm all about the gratitude. I'm a glass half full kind of guy these days, and everything I do, it's basically in the service of helping other people, because it all helps me, you know.
Oh, I love that. Fantastic. A couple of other quick questions, Danny, then we're going to bring Joelle on so we can get our full panel together. I'm not a great one with accents, as people who know me know well, but it sounds like you're from a different part of the world than the United States. Share with our community, where are you broadcasting from today?
Coming to you live at 10:20 a.m. from Sydney, Australia, mate.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Thus, your future state. We talked about this a little bit in the green room, but you were saying the future is looking good. Tomorrow's a good day, right?
Yes, it absolutely is. Today is a beautiful day. You should look forward to it.
Fantastic. Danny, quick line or two about Encapsulator. We might come back to this in the context of our panel discussion tonight, but tell us a little bit more about the time capsules, just really quick, 15 seconds.
Really appreciate it. We provide an opportunity for you to record raw and unguarded a message to your future self, capturing your hopes, your dreams, and future aspirations. And this gets locked away into our secure time-locked vault, waiting to a predetermined date in the future for you to discover. So there you go.
I love that. That's fantastic. And folks in the audience, I know, Danny, are going to want to learn more about that and may want to take advantage. Folks, I'm the host who doesn't have a problem with the shameless plug. So I'm going to help our guests to make sure they get all the goodness they've got out to you. We'll get some of that information out to you folks in the chat during tonight's program. Danny, it's great to have you with us. You're going to stay on here. We're going to bring on next up our next very special guest, Joelle. Joelle Ramirez is an award-winning entrepreneur. Are you on already, Joelle? Did you come on the screen? There you are. Welcome to the Cadence program. How are you, sir?
Thanks for having me, Steve. And yeah, great to be with you in this session, Danny. It's funny that we're actually both from Sydney in Australia. Yeah. So what are the chances that you've got two Aussies in your show tonight?
we couldn't be happier and more proud to have both of you with us. And Joelle, from what I understand, you're not just both in Australia, but you're really close. It's a fairly large country. But you guys are like stone's throw, right?
We're literally just separated by a bridge. We're practically 10 minutes away from each other.
Fantastic. So again, you're close, but you're connecting digitally. See how great the program's already working. Now, Joelle, I'd be remiss if I didn't get an opportunity to share with our community your quick intro, because a lot of great stuff, just as with Danny, that you've been doing with your life. You're an award-winning entrepreneur, social well-being expert, right? We're certainly going to get into that topic tonight. And the author of the book, Better Together, Why Loneliness is Killing Us and What We Can Do About It. I'd love to have you hold that book. There we go. We're going to come back to that. I've got a lot of questions for you on that front. Again, as we know now, you're based in Sydney. And you coach businesses nationally, facilitate events, and share the stage with leaders from Australia's leading brands. Fantastic, Joelle. It's great to have you with us. And we're so excited about tonight's program. Joelle, before we get into the topic, just real quickly, hold the book up again, if you would. And let's hear the title. Now, I know you're super proud of this. You've been working on this book for a while. Tell the audience a little bit about it, because we're going to come back to some of the themes that you've written about in the course of our discussion tonight.
Yeah, sure. So the book is called Better Together, and it took me about 4 years to write, partly because I had 2 kids along the way with my wife, and we've sold a business, and initially I actually wrote a book on mental health. But the more I read into the threads of the book, the more I realized it was actually the lack of meaningful relationships in our lives that's causing a lot of mental health issues and depression. So I thought, why don't we just talk about the elephant in the room that's least talked about in society because of all the stigma around loneliness, and let's talk about that. So when I started writing about loneliness, people were quick to say, oh yeah, that happens a lot to older people, but it couldn't be further from the truth. And I think COVID, in a way, made the subject very relevant today because all of a sudden, everyone felt what it's like to be alone, feeling lonely or isolated in our own homes as we all got locked down. So,
Joel, that's a really sharp observation. I'm going to use it as a bit of a springboard just to launch into our topic. Obviously, I think if we could all take a vote, right? Who would have voted that we never had a pandemic, right? Hands up, right? But, right, silver linings, maybe as part of this, as you noted, Joel, people have discovered that loneliness and challenges with your mental health, emotional state, these are very, very serious and important issues that have far-reaching implications. And I guess the question I have is, did the pandemic enable this to become a topic that we can now begin to talk about? Because I don't ever remember hearing about this. Mental health has been around as a topic, but not sort of loneliness, isolation, kind of digging deeper. So did the pandemic at least give us a chance to begin to explore some of these topics in a more serious fashion?
Absolutely. I think more so about isolation, but loneliness. It's rare that people will say that I'm lonely. It's usually they will say something's not right, something is off center. I don't exactly know what it is, but I'm feeling a bit depressed. I'm feeling a bit sad. I'm feeling down. I'm beginning to be a little bit more defensive and unable to think clearly. So they don't realize there's that loneliness piece weaved into that. And until you start unpacking what loneliness is, that they begin to realize that, oh, I think what you're saying is I really need to reconnect with family, with loved ones, and I need to build some new connections and relationships that I just realize I actually don't have. I may be speaking with people, but it's not meaningful. It's not a supportive or trusting relationship. It's just, I know about you, but do I really know that person? And do they really know who I am? Can I actually open up and tell you my deepest, darkest secrets? And will I feel safe when I say that? Will I be judged? So there was never really a talk about loneliness, but loneliness is just a general topic and encapsulating what is effectively a disconnection that we need to talk about.
Interesting. And Danny, I kind of set up Joel a little bit with the pandemic question, as I'm prone to do. It's my simplistic interviewing style. Nevertheless, I'll try to not do the same with you, but it feels to me like some of these issues existed before the pandemic, right? And is it just now that they're coming to the fore? Have we always been lonely? Or is this part of the human condition generally that we're now just sort of experiencing in a different way, which may cause us to now pause and say, well, what's going on here?
Yeah, such a great point, Steve. If you think about, especially if you think about my community and the community that I work with, and that's certainly people on a journey of a transformation from drug and alcohol addiction to, living their life to the fullest. Actually, life was always about that isolation. Isolation is the biggest problem in a man's life, in addiction, I think so, and the mental health. So, and actually, it's almost like COVID flipped it on the other side. That it's brought people together without even, they have had no choice to be brought together. So connect. They say the opposite to addiction is connection. So if you think about it like that, COVID's done us a world of good, and I've been very lucky to stay connected, working with my clients through the whole face-to-face, through the whole pandemic anyway,
Sure. And And Danny, both of you are entrepreneurs, right? And so I think you both inherently see opportunity, perhaps where others don't. Danny, has the pandemic influenced at all how you continue to drive your business encapsulator, or have some new revelations come out of this experience for you that cause you to behave a little differently as a business leader?
Yeah, good point again, Steve. Actually, COVID in this, like, it has opened up the opportunities for me to meet with people, whenever I want globally. Yeah, so that's a fantastic bit. But I used to thrive on face-to-face events every week, networking events. That's where the magic really started happening with me in my journey of entrepreneurship. I'm at WeWork every single week I'm pitching at some competition, I'm meeting big people, I'm inspired by people. I don't quite capture that same feeling through Zoom. So so it's probably in some responses I've gone downhill, but I've always got a lot of hope, and I practice courage every day. So I take advantage of any opportunity I can, like you said.
Fantastic. And Joelle, you mentioned it took you 4 years to write the book. So I do the math, and I'm not great with the math, but you started that initiative that project before the pandemic.
Correct.
It must have been fascinating as you're writing this to now have this sort of real-time kind of laboratory experiment, right, in mental health and disconnection, and to share it with our audience. What was that like for you as an author, as you're writing about something that now is kind of happening in a way that's never happened for most of us, right?
Well, yeah. Firstly, when COVID happened, it was a shock, I think, for all of us. But as I was writing about the topic of social well-being, I just realized, wow, this is the biggest social experiment that we've ever had to face. And as I was looking through each chapter, I had to begin weaving coronavirus and the lockdowns into my story. But to your point earlier, to the question you asked, Danny, we may only be talking about loneliness now, but the thing is, we are social creatures. So this is not dependent on the pandemic, but this is dependent on something that's been happening for a very long time that we're only beginning to start talking about. And one of the difficulties I had in writing about loneliness is the lack of data out there. Not so much maybe America or some of the Western countries, but there's so much data that's still missing around the world because they're not realizing the importance of social well-being, the importance of human connection. So most of the time we're focusing on mental health as an issue, but I tell you that I would say that if you solve the social element, you could solve a lot of things. A lot of the times we just want to be able to talk to someone, and with mental health, with a lot of people who are depressed, most of the time when they speak to, say, a psychologist or contact a lifeline or a helpline, it's really just to have a chat with someone. And most of the time they just have no confidant or someone to speak with. So really that's the thing that we need to be solving as a society, as individuals, as people, as governments. And it needs to go from top down and from down to top at the same time. So really, I kind of thank COVID. I never think COVID happened, but I'm making the most of it because it's opened up the conversation, is what it's done for us.
Well, it's really interesting, but not surprising to hear both of your optimistic and very positive viewpoints. Just the short time we've got to know each other, you both exude that, which is just wonderful. And it's interesting to me, Joelle, because as you're describing kind of the differences you see between mental health and, sometimes people just want to talk to another human. It strikes me, do we sometimes overcomplicate some of these problems, right? and therefore prevent making progress because we're not maybe working on the right thing?
Yeah, I think sometimes we do overthink it. I would say that for someone, say, going through depression or heading towards that, um, they never really, they never say, this is my problem and come and solve it. Most of the time, we want to solve their problems, but most of the time, we just need someone to talk to. So what they would generally say is, I don't want you to solve my problem. I just wish someone was sitting next to me and just do life together. No one says, hey, come on, let's hang out. I'm feeling lonely. It's, the better way of doing it is just being human and say, hey, just want to hang out because I miss you, man. Let's go for a beer or coffee and let's just catch up. And that's the thing that builds connection. That's the thing that deepens our social bonds with people. So we don't need to complicate it. We don't need to be psychologists or doctors. We just need to be human. And the key is listening. Be a good listener.
It's beautiful. And Joelle, you sort of read the community's mind. Fallon, I think, was capturing the sentiment of the group, kind of wondering, can these conversations just be, can we just sit down and have, just talk to someone about just general things, just chit chat life? Or does it have to be a deep, heavy, oh, you're lonely and I can help you be unlonely, and you got there, but I'd love to hear you just kind of address that directly again.
Look, that's very interesting. Someone who's actually, firstly, may I say that loneliness is a very normal human condition. In the same way as we eat when we're hungry, we drink water when we're thirsty. Our brain, when we're feeling a bit lonely, it's our brain's way of saying you need to reconnect. You need to go and speak with someone. It's only when it becomes chronic over a period of time that it begins to affect us both in our heads, in our minds, our bodies, our health, etc. So we definitely loneliness is good because it tells us to reconnect, but we must absolutely solve chronic loneliness. But in terms of those general conversations, I remember catching the boat to get to work one time, and someone who's had to overcome chronic loneliness and depression, someone just contacted me, Steve, and said, hey, hey, it's Ramon, how you going? And I'm like, why is this human being contacting me? What have I done, or what does he need from me, right? And he said, so I said, hey, what's up? Is everything okay? Can I help? And he goes, no, I'm just I was just thinking about you this morning as I was feeding the kids and sent them off to school, and I just thought I'd give you a phone call and say hi. And so we spoke for the next 10 minutes, and I was still thinking in my head, what does he want? This is really, for me, it was awkward. No one has done that before, where they reached out just being human and saying, Joelle, you matter to me. I just want to call and say hello. And it felt so good, Steve. I put the phone down and I realized, man, I didn't realize that's what I needed. You don't know what you don't know. And sometimes when you're going through depression, the way you solve it is maybe you take drugs or you take alcohol, or unfortunately, some people will take it to the next level, right? And it wasn't until I realized these people were trying to reach out and just have a normal conversation. And eventually I realized that I wasn't lonely anymore. Eventually I wanted to do the same thing for other people. So now I'm just calling people, catching up, doing FaceTime, Zooming during the pandemic. But before the pandemic, I would run coffee groups where I would invite men, especially married men, because they never leave the house, and just have coffee on the weekend. At first it's awkward, but then at some point they realize, wow, this is actually good for me. This is something that's missing in my life. I'm going to keep turning up.
That's wonderful. And thank you so much for sharing that story with us, Joelle. It's such a powerful example, Danny, isn't it, of someone who reaches out, right? Just with the simple intent of making another human feel better. It's hard to ask for help, right? And so doesn't that outreach become really, really important, Danny, for people to get out of a state of loneliness or, you know, any kind of a negative state?
It's funny because, yeah, I agree. And I like that question about how deep does it have to be. And I just want to acknowledge first that, like, deep connections are not formed easily. Not in my experience anyway. So that, I call it small talk. I love small talk. You get deep and meaningful with me and you start telling me, giving me compliments, that's when it's going to really exhaust me, actually, you know. So, and I think to build intimate connections with another human being, and maybe it would take 12 of those coffee days at Joel's place before you can start. Like, intimate connection actually makes me sick. It used to anyway, you know, like, it's hard work. So I love small talk, and small talk often is all I need, mate, to get me through, you know. And it's just about listening. You know, the hardest part easiest part about my job is just listening. You know, I don't need to provide any information. I just got to listen.
You both have mentioned this, right? And so I was going to ask for a bit of a lightning round. I was going to do a cold call with you guys and ask for some kind of lightning round tips, right? As Adam mentioned in the chat, a lot of folks are dealing with loneliness for the first time because of the pandemic. They're used to going into an office or a workplace, right, on a daily basis, and at least you've got some other people around, right? And so, you know, as you guys think about, like, what are some tips? What can people do while we're still all struggling with, you know, lockdowns and, you know, lack of movement and freedoms and so forth? Like, what can people do, right, to try to either establish new connections or reconnect? How would you advise our audience and others to try to take advantage of the opportunity to build those connections? Who wants to jump in first?
Go for it, Joel.
Yeah, wow, that's a really good question. Firstly, I really like how Danny is so open about his past, and there's authenticity in that vulnerability, right? Like, when someone opens up to you, like, where do you go from there? You know, when you meet someone for the first time, whether it's face to face or online, the first thing we all do is, in that first 15 seconds, is decide whether they're going to be a friend or foe. But as soon as I met Danny and he opens up, you know, I'm all, you know, 12 plus years sober, I'm like, oh man, this guy is this guy has shown some authenticity in the conversation, you know. And automatically in my head, from crossing my arms in my head to opening up as well.
Yeah.
And you lean in and say, you know what, I have issues too. You know, sometimes we're so stoic and we show this face to people that everything is okay, that I'm successful, that you know, we got it all together. But you know, all of us have some kind of skeleton in the closet. We all have anxieties and things that we're worried about, and it's at that it's not until at that point where people begin to show some vulnerability that you can actually go and have that deep conversation, that deep connection with someone. You know, in my book, I talk about how shared pain brings people together. It's because at an emotional level, you feel more connected to that human being, that they too have struggles, that things are not perfect. And I think that's something that we need more in our lives. Sometimes, I don't know how many people here are white collared office people, and sometimes, you know, in the last 18 months, most of that Zoom session that we have, or team session that we have, people get straight into KPIs, about the goals, it's very transactional. And so when you think about, you know, employers asking, you know, how can I retain my employees? You know, I'm giving them more salary, I'm giving them all the titles. Sometimes it's not about that. Sometimes, you know, there was a research done around what do people need the most from their employers. And the top three, one of the top two was better relationship with my employer and better relationships with my colleagues.
Mm.
That's what makes people stay. And in fact, you don't have to have heavy conversations with your employees for them to be productive. Research have shown that just an hour a week of just spending time with them will increase productivity. You don't have to make it complicated.
Love it. I love it. So just those, Danny, those simple outreaches, just casual conversation, doesn't have to go deep. I love how you described, right? It go too deep too fast, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm scared of it, to be honest. I like I said, I don't like deep. Like it's exhausting, but those are the most precious ones. But you can't have 10 of those relationships. I've got 3. You know what I mean? I'm more than happy to have 3. But let me suggest one of my tips would be people actually love to help, right? So when we ask for help, right? So try to be brave, have some courage, and reach out and ask for help, because actually people want to help. People love you asking them a certain question. They want to tell you their experience, and it starts to form the beginning of any relationship. And if I can just secondly let you guys know that I am probably one of the most luckiest men in the world because of this reason, right? I'm actually part of a fellowship of men and women who are everywhere, like they're amongst us everywhere. I can travel anywhere in the world and automatically just go to a meeting of Narcotics Anonymous and be connected with at least 20 or 50 people who are exact same background as me, and it's our job as members to hook each other up. So like if you join me from America and I see you at one of my Sydney meetings, I'm going to go up to you and go, hey mate, how are you? I'm going to invite you out for coffee. I'm blessed. Like I'm connected too much, actually. Yeah.
Wonderful. That falls in the category of good problems to have, I think.
Yeah, quality problems.
Gentlemen, this is so riveting. I could just sit here with you at the broadcast all night and continue to enjoy your stories and your fantastic tips. I know, though, our community is interested in sitting down and chatting with you directly as well. So what I want to suggest is we break out. Let's go out to the tables. Let's maybe take 10 minutes or so and engage with the folks out there. I'm sure they want to meet you. They may have questions directly for you. And then when we come back to wrap up the program in segment 3, I'll just ask a couple questions about what you've heard from the folks in the community.
Sure.
And you can be the voice of our Cadence community tonight and share that back with everyone. So, folks, we're going to exit our broadcast mode here, and in just a few moments, we'll be joining you out at the table. So we look forward to seeing you there. It's great to have you back. We just had a brief time with our community out at the tables tonight because we had a nice, robust conversation in segment 1. So I want to get right to it. Danny, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. We were at the same table. And you were making a point as we kind of moved back towards broadcast mode about, again, what can we do, right, to help people that we know are lonely? And you had some good advice I'd love for you to share.
Yeah, I'm sorry we got cut off from that, but it's quite simple. Like we were talking about, especially young people who probably feeling it more than us older, experienced people, the isolation. Like all we need to do as human beings, and each and every one of us, if we just reach out to one person out there and maybe just give our ears to one person, take them for a coffee or just offer a phone call, just like Joel mentioned earlier. If every single person done that, the problem would be eliminated. If every person in the world done it, you know what I mean? We'd be right. So there's just a simple tip to stay connected. And basically we do that by I keep what I have by giving it away,
I love that. I hope someone writes that down. We want to get that in the post-show LinkedIn highlights. That's fantastic. Danny, just kind of a follow-up, as we reach out to people, should we be concerned at all that, I don't know, we might offend someone, it might be viewed as presumptuous, we're trying to help? Are there any concerns about that? Does that prevent people from reaching out and helping others or making connections if maybe they're concerned how they'll be perceived?
Such another great point, Steve. I found out, I discovered just today that some of my shit can trigger other people too, right? But what am I gonna no, you shouldn't hold back. I don't think we do need. There's certainly a lot of details which I've held back today, but I've learned over this last decade, and so is that when I am brave and I get honest, that's when I can really help someone, because people connect. I work with a bunch of men coming directly from prison often. Some of the roughest, toughest, bullheadiest guys who have just done 10 years, even more. And I'm able to connect with people instantly because actually I was probably in the same jail they were at 17 years ago. But even more importantly, because I can go, I don't know, this is something in me being really honest right from the beginning. If they look rough and tough, I might even say, fuck, you look a bit intimidating. It's stuff like that builds
icebreaker
instantly, you know?
Nice.
I hope that answered the question.
Oh, you absolutely. It doesn't matter what question I ask, Danny. We just want to hear your perspectives.
Yeah, cheers, man.
And Joelle, you were at a different table. How was your experience with the community? Any interesting questions or challenges come up?
Well, yeah, I think a couple of things. Emma was saying that she saw one of people that she knew, Mary, and unfortunately they were in a no talking carriage in the train. And it was really difficult because during the pandemic, you see someone, it's like, hey, hello, how are you? And we also talked about those water cooler type conversations that generally happens if we were in the office. And unfortunately sometimes we don't get to have that online, which is a bit of a shame. And I talked about how it's easier to have those conversations in person, but also when we see people face to face, a chemical called oxytocin is actually released in the system. It's a feel-good hormone. It's something that makes us feel good. So totally, I love online, especially during the pandemic, because it allowed us to just keep going. But my message is, don't forget to see people face to face. As social creatures, that's how we're designed.
How we're wired, yeah, as we'd say in the tech field. Very, very interesting. Gentlemen, I'm going to throw a question in because we're moving into the holiday season. For some of us, we're already there, right? Those of us celebrating Thanksgiving in this country and perhaps elsewhere. I'm learning there's different Thanksgivings. I never knew. Anyway, so you got to get out more, Steve, I guess is the lesson there. Gentlemen, most people think, oh, it's the holidays. It's time. This could be the time for my mental reboot, right? Work slows down, or maybe get a little time off, see family and friends, right? The spirit of all the good stuff, right? Yet what I've also heard is that this is one of the worst times for people potentially with loneliness and feeling disconnection. Are those challenges in the holidays that we need to be thinking about? Is it going to be worse because of the pandemic? I don't know. I've heard before this is a challenging time of year for some people.
Yeah, when I hear that, Steve, I automatically, because I won't suffer from any of that, right? Because I'm too connected. Like, actually, I need some time out, but I'm feeling for the other people. I really am. Like, I just know, like, my clients, I work in a drug and alcohol rehab, right? And actually, I've worked there on Christmas Day the last 7 years running, right? I hang with my family Christmas Eve, but I've been at work on Christmas Day, and it's a beautiful, beautiful day for us to be able to come together and give these guys, some of these guys haven't even had a Christmas together with a family or even a birthday or a birthday cake. So, I'm really feeling for those people. I think start trying to reach out now to build some connections, because we don't want to be lonely. And I always say to people, reach out to me anytime. I will never ignore a message, from anyone. I will always respond.
Fantastic. Joelle, what do you think about the holidays?
Yeah, it's such a shame, isn't it? The first thing I was thinking of is, you can't solve the world's problem, but you can do something, and you can't help everyone, but you might be able to help one. So start with that. I would say invite someone, and see if you can invite someone that's not in your network, that's not in your social groups or community. They pick someone who may be from overseas, and they're alone this Christmas. Maybe they are a solo dweller. Think about those people and say, hey, where we've got a Christmas party or a Christmas celebration, and if it's COVID safe and that's allowed in your state, invite them. Unfortunately, we spoke yesterday, Danny and Steve, so-called dress rehearsal, and I mentioned that people who are going through loneliness, especially if it's chronic and if it's that severe, they might not reach out.
Mhm.
And they get into this one of the things that happen with chronic loneliness is we go into self-preservation mode and we become more defensive. That's our brain's way of trying to protect us. Even though we're meant to see people, we're meant to connect, we start fearing things. We start creating these thoughts in our heads, thinking that maybe there's something wrong with me. I feel ashamed. Maybe I've done something wrong, and maybe I'll just stay home because home in these four walls, it's safe.
Right.
I don't have to be judged. But so that kind of thinking is obviously not good for us, that kind of self-talk. But people with severe loneliness can't help but think like that. So it's actually up to us who may be in a, like to Danny's point, more blessed in a position to give back. It's up to us to actually reach out, Start with one.
I love that. And
Me too.
it's
Great.
clear that our community does too as well, gentlemen, because I'm seeing in the chat folks are committing and they're committing to each other to commit to reaching out to just one person and making that connection, Joelle and Danny, making a difference in someone's life and helping to make a bridge that they can't reach out and start on their own or may not know that they even need it, right? Until, Joelle, as your story, you shared with us, right? You didn't even know you needed that phone call from your mate until you got that, right? And it was just a gift from him to you.
And that was a trigger, right? It only needed to happen that one time where one person decided to add value to just one person. And because of that one person ended up writing a book. So just again, we don't need to help everyone, but just imagine if you can just add value to that one person. Imagine what value that one person can do when they're able to bless others. It's multiplied.
Very good. Wonderful. Gentlemen, I'm sensitive to the fact that we've run over our official time. I'm also aware of the fact that I think it's like the morning for you guys, right? So you have to go to work now. You've been playing hooky, as we'd say over here on this side. But we've really enjoyed thoroughly this amazing conversation. And thank you so much for taking time, gentlemen, Danny and Joelle, to share your perspectives with us. It's a really important topic, human connection generally. It's actually sort of the most important kind of underlying theme of our Cadence series, right? Is all about human connection and engagement. And I think you both spoke so eloquently and gave voice to those who are struggling, right? And who need something, right? To get connected. They need help from someone else. And I think you've given some great practical tips, but also a lot of motivation for us tonight, right? Thank you so much for being open and sharing your personal stories as well. It really gives a powerful exclamation point to your perspective. So thank you for being with us tonight, Joelle and Danny. We wish you an amazing rest of your day. And folks in our audience, we want to thank you as well. You've invested your valuable time with us. Some of you in the evening, others, I know we've got folks from Australia, some fanboys of the two of you, right, who have joined us as well. So they'll get back to work with the two of you. Folks, this wraps it up for us, not only for tonight's November episode of Cadence, but for 2021. We're going to take December off, try to do a little mental reboot. We're going to try to really internalize what you folks have shared with us tonight and, make sure that we reach out and fulfill our promises to each other and commitments. Reach out, folks. Find someone who could use a little bit of a conversation and share some goodwill.
Simple.
With that,
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Danny, and thank you, Joelle, and want to thank you on behalf of our community. I'd also like to thank our great friends and partners at ACE Events. Thank you for producing such an amazing experience. It's a really great organization, fantastic people. If you need virtual event help, ACE is your first stop. Second stop in the alphabet is B-Dance. Appreciate the team at B-Dance, Fallon and Ian and others who also assist in putting together the program. Gentlemen, before we go, just one last question. Where can our audience connect with you? Danny, let's go first. Do you have an email address, a podcast, a website? Where can folks find you and get more Danny Shannon?
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, you can find out more about my story and Encapsulator at encapsulator.io. I don't know if
you
I
type that in the chat. That'd be great. I can't spell I-O, otherwise I'd help you.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. And also on LinkedIn, under Danny A. Shannon, I threw the A in just so you can find me.
Fantastic. So looks like people are typing that into the chat. And Joelle, I'm going to ask you as well. First of all, can you hold up your book again, please? And the title, Better Together. Read the whole thing for everybody.
Yeah, so it says Better Together While Loneliness is Killing Us and What We Can Do About It. You can get it on Amazon, Google Play, lots of other stores, Barnes and Noble, etc., etc. If you're in the US, there is a Kindle version and obviously the book version as well. Very tactile. And if you want to switch off from digital and have a mental reboot, if you go to my website, I will personally sign a copy for you. There you go.
Nice. And folks, look, we love our friends at Amazon, but go direct to Joel's site, Joel's site, get the signed copy. Joel, real quickly, beautiful artwork on the book cover. Just the metaphor of the artwork before we go.
Oh, thank you. No, I'd really like to share that. So obviously, this is the person that's feeling left out. But you know, if I go sideways, it looks like a Star Trek ship. But anyway. It also symbolizes a tree. You know how a tree is connected with everything all the way to the ground, and it produces good fruits if it's all in the right conditions. So when it comes to relationships, there are 3 layers to our relationships. The first one are your key intimate relationships. Could be a mom, a dad, a best friend, a wife, a spouse, or, you know, whatever it is.
Danny mentioned 3, right?
Mention 3, that's right. You know, that's when you can just really open up to them. That's where you have the deepest level of trust. But don't forget to have your social network. So the orange bit outside of that are your social networks, people that you get to catch up with on a weekly basis, fortnightly, or on a monthly basis. Could be the AA Anonymous. It could be your tennis group, your cycling club. It could be just mates and friends that you have beers, go fishing with, or just people that you chat with. And then this is your community. Your community could be the suburb or the city or town or village that you live in and are part of. And unfortunately, some people don't feel like they belong in that community. You may live in it, but you're disconnected and feel like you're, you know, for whatever reason, maybe because people think you look different from them, or you're just different, you know, that sucks. That sucks for a lot of people. So when the community could be your librarian, could be the barista that you see from time to time. All of these are part of your relationships, overall relationships. So really, I put that together so that people don't forget that there's 3 dimensions to relationships, and we kind of need all of them.
That's awesome. I love that. And with apologies to everyone for not working that in sooner. I definitely wanted to give Joelle an opportunity to share that, as well as both of you to provide your contact information, which you've done, which is in the chat as I see.
Awesome.
Folks, I would encourage you to reach out to Danny and Joelle, keep the conversation going, reach out to other folks, make new connections, reestablish old connections, take full advantage of this holiday time. Make it a great, safe, and wonderful time for you and your family and friends. Danny and Joelle, thank you again so much for being our very special guest tonight on Cadence and for closing out our year in 2021. Folks, we look forward to seeing you in January. So watch LinkedIn, watch your email, watch wherever you learn about Cadence. We'll be providing more information about upcoming episodes for 2022. And we look forward to seeing you all back safe and healthy next year. Gentlemen, have a great, safe, and wonderful holiday season. Thanks again for being with us. Good night, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you next
time. See you, Steve and Danny and everyone. Merry Christmas.
Thanks.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Thank you.